Hi there, this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com, and today we're going to try to demystify math. I get a lot of questions about what I do for math. Now, I'm the homeschooling mom of 15 and I've been homeschooling for 30 years. So math is a subject that I'm quite acquainted with. Actually, I've kind of come up with my own idea of what math looks like and how we should go about it. The first thing I want to get across is that we as homeschoolers always feel as though we're behind in math. We always feel, unless you have like a math whiz and you come from a math family and all that kind of stuff, but most of us, for the most part, we feel as though we're somehow at a deficit and we're behind in math, especially if we have kids that struggle and where you see in the public school what they're covering is, they're already doing unknowns and they're into pre-algebra, and our kids are probably still struggling with like fractions and everything, and we're thinking, oh man, we're so far behind. But a friend of my daughter's who is homeschooled and then somehow through events in her life became involved in the public school system as an adult and as a mother, has found out that homeschoolers, what we do is we tend to want to teach our children until they actually grasp a concept before going on to the next. And so that's what makes us feel as though we're always behind. But from her observation, what's happening by and large in public school systems, or those types of even private school systems that are based on those ideas, is that we move forward whether or not a child has actually grasped and mastered a certain part of math. We push them on anyway, and so then the frustration compounds, and in the end, in public schooling, if somebody doesn't get a concept, they just put them in a category to where they don't have to worry about them anymore, and then they just kind of pass them on from there on out. I didn't think that would still be happening, but it is by and large in our modern public school system. Even in conservative areas, even if you think you might have the best schools in the nation, they boast, look at our test scores. I got to tell you from another public school teacher that I know that by and large what they do is the kids that struggle in school, they test them out. In other words, they're allowed to put them in special education category, therefore they don't count anymore on their testing. So the test scores that we're seeing are actually on the students that are doing well in all areas, and they don't have to count the students that struggle. So I don't know if that helps you at all. Hopefully it does. But as a homeschooler, we should be doing that. That's how math should be taught. We should be trying to help our kids master something before they move on to the next thing, so they don't have that compounded frustration. I think a lot of the reason most of us hate math is because when we were in school, we were pushed and pushed and pushed past our ability to understand at that stage in our development. And so what ends up happening a lot, hi honey, someone just came in. Okay, so what happens is we have a bad taste in our mouth from that. And also for our children who are old enough to realize it, they look at their public school peers if they're homeschooled and they think, wow, my public school peers, look what they're covering in school and we're still doing X, Y, or Z. And so I just want to let you know that that's not necessarily a bad thing. We should not feel badly that we are helping our children to master things before they move on to the next. Now, having said all that, I also want to give you a basic outline as to what we're talking about in what we would call computational math. Now, there's actually theory, math theory. I was in the Army in military intelligence with a gentleman who was a professor at a university, and he was a professor of mathematics, if you can imagine that. And I said, well, what kind of calculation, was it calculus? What is it? He goes, we never used numbers. So there's a whole bunch of math that's just reasoning, if you can understand that. Okay, so I'm going to show you a basic outline of what we are going to talk about in the elementary years. Okay, right now we're talking about elementary education. And I'm going to turn you on to some resources and some things that will help you if you want to have further understanding. Sometimes it helps us to be armed, to be armed and dangerous, to really know the what's and the whys and the wherefores, why we're teaching a subject. So let me show you this. Here is my nifty little chalkboard. My husband bought me chalkboard markers, isn't that sweet? So anyway, it's much better than chalk. Okay, so here I have math, and basically what we want to cover in the elementary years is number sense, basic operations, complex operations, fractions, decimals, and percents. That's just like on the computation with number side. Okay, so number sense is where you learn to count and you learn your place value and the different patterns that we see. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the camera. So basically what it is, it's the counting and how to count by tens, fives, twos, and all those. That's number sense. Okay, place value, that kind of thing. Basic operations is just your basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Complex operations is when you get like in long multiplication, long division, that kind of thing. Fractions, of course, is a whole nother thing. Most people totally freak because most fraction problems are multi-leveled and you have to do multiple things to solve them. And so fractions is one of those things that you have basic and you have complex, but fractions is like a whole subject by itself. Then decimals come up for fractions, and those are pretty straightforward. If you understand your basic operations, then decimals, once they understand how they're come about, and decimals aren't really too hard, and percents aren't too hard either. So there's the basic progression. Now over here, what I have, the other things you need to cover is basic geometry, like your shapes, angles, types of shapes, the names and all that kind of stuff. Measuring, which means linear and liquid measure and volume and all that kind of thing, how to do a perimeter and an area, all that kind of stuff. Then we have money, that's kind of important, and time. That's not only telling the time, but also figuring out, okay, if it's 3:30 in the morning and you wake up at 7:30, how many hours of sleep will you have, that kind of thing. Okay, graphs and charts. For some reason in public schooling this is huge, but even the dullards I know it doesn't take them very long to figure out graphs and charts. But anyway, don't get me started. Okay, story problems. Of course, that's a conundrum for everybody because most story problems that they have in books, none of us can relate to. Am I right? Okay, it's like, okay, if Sally has 6 teacups and George has 6 plates and Anne breaks 3 of them, how mad will Mom be in an hour? Okay, so here's probability. Probability is one of those things. It's slightly useful. Then we have ratios. Ratios can be really helpful if you do any kind of crafting. And actually it can happen kind of naturally if you like to do any kind of handicraft or woodwork or anything. Ratios can be kind of important. Solving for unknowns. That's when we're getting to pre-algebra, when we start putting like solve for x, solve for n, whatever they're doing. So that's basically, if you can think that I fit all of that on this little tiny chalkboard. And that's basically what you're going to be doing. Now, how you go about that, that's the question, right? So, I have all kinds of resources here. One thing that can help you to understand, to make sense of all of this, is Ruth Beechick. She had a wonderful way of communicating, and she loved homeschooling for some reason, bless her heart. And she has helped the rest of us to figure it out. So this is the 3 R's by Ruth Beechick. Now this has to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. And she goes through all the way, covers kindergarten through grade 3. And in the back of it, it even has a nifty little hundreds chart and all kinds of goodies. So this would help you just to kind of basically understand the flow of how most arithmetic is taught in the elementary years through the 3rd grade. Okay, so that can really help you. Also, then she's written this one, You Can Teach Your Child Successfully. And this is grades 4 through 8. So this is very helpful. And she has, and back in here, let's see. She has everything that you need to know. But, it doesn't have the problems in here. So, you need something else for that. So those will just help you to understand what you're trying to do. This is before you buy any curriculum, okay? Before you decide to use any other system, this can help you. You don't have to have it, but it is a blessing. Now I will go on to some other things that I think are important. One of them being that in those early stages you need to have some visual representations. And I want to show you some ways that you can do that without going out and breaking the bank. And I know it's so fun to buy those pretty, lovely things, and you just have them in all the bins, and you think how excited I am, and then you don't use 2/3 of them, or 1/3 of them, or none of them, and you find that they're inconvenient to get out, and they're a pain to put away, and you've wasted all that money for nothing. Well, why not instead go to the dollar store? They have manipulatives for, I think these are 2 packs of these little blocks, $2. Okay. If you have old games, just say the old game pieces, you can do all kinds of stuff with old game pieces. Or, you can go to the Goodwill and find old games and just take all the goodies out, whatever. That's something that's really cheap. Here you go, popsicle sticks. Oh, these are invaluable. You can get them in a big box for like a few bucks. And you can take these and you put them in groups of 10, and you can practice place value and all kinds of stuff with those. Those are fun. Dominoes. Dominoes are great for teaching all kinds of stuff. I have over here, I'll show you, this is really neat. Sorry, I have to take it out. I wasn't quite prepared. Oh, here we go. This you can find at Walmart, I think, even. This is just a little clock the businesses use, so we'll return and they put their little time on it. But it's so perfect for teaching time because you see the little tick marks right here? The minute marks. And you can teach all kinds of stuff about time. I use this for years, and it says on the inside, open, come in, like that. So I've taught, my husband used this at his office, okay, and then I inherited it. So I use this for years, and it's already done for you, and you can find this. You don't have to go to a specialty shop. I imagine you could find this, another thing for cheaper. I'm just showing you what I used, you can use. Here we have, this is the bucket, and my husband went to a teacher store, and he bought me these things with the dollars and everything else. It's kind of fun, but you don't have to have that. Just a whole bunch of dice. You see this? A whole bunch of dice. You'd be amazed what you can play, what kind of games you can play with dice to help people practice their basic math facts, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You can throw them all in together and make up games and make them use them all together. It's a lot of fun. An abacus is great to have for teaching place value and adding things. There are extra exercises and stuff for that. That's fun. And also some blank money to play all kinds of money games with. Now, Monopoly is great for this too, but I think I got this off of, I can't remember her name, Donna Young's site. I don't know if she still has that up for free or not, but anyway, that's where I got my money. And I actually did it like in different colors, different denominations, and we play all kinds of fun games with this. So you can even have them like do chores and hand out money, and then they have to count it, and like, well, I'll sublet my chores and I'll pay you 50 cents an hour to your sibling, whatever. All kinds of stuff like that. So all kinds of ideas for that are cheap and easy to use. You can use big butter beans, like buy a bag of butter beans and use those as counters. And as like a hundreds board is just an amazing thing to have around. You will use it for so much, especially in the early years. This is Ruth B. Chicks, but this is for free all over the internet, and I'm going to turn you on to a website that you're going to really like. It's going to be so cheap or free. A lot of that stuff I'm going to share with you is not expensive. Some of it may be a little bit, you have to put a little bit of money into, but not really. I mean, I'm just not a person, I don't have a lot of extra cash just to throw around, and if I use it, I don't care. Whatever money I have has to be very focused money. So I'm very careful with what I spend my money on. So, another thing that my mom got from a teacher that lived by her, now this is not in print, and I'm just going to make you drool, and then I'm just tease you. No. So what this is a book called Number Stories. I wish this was in print. I want to put this in print. This is such an amazing book for little kids. Basically what it is it starts with some stories about monkeys, and it teaches all kinds of stuff, but it's just a really cute story, and it's easy enough for a child to read themselves, but I already read it aloud. And it does comparisons of big, little, and all that kind of stuff. It teaches basic numbers. I want to see this. These pictures are just really cute. And then it goes into bears, and it teaches basic place value. It's just really a sweet book, but you can't have it. Oh, you could probably find something equivalent on the internet, but I have not been able to find it. But if anyone wants a fun project, put this in print again. Anyway, but you don't have that, right? So you got to find some other things that'll work. I like this. Now there's two. Well, before I'll back up. You won't mind, will you? Okay, so this is a book that I think will also add to your confidence. This is a book called Complete Business Arithmetic. Okay, I want you to notice the size of this book. I want you to notice how thick it is. And I want you to realize that this book goes all the way from number sense through everything I have written on that little board and more. And this is all a person would need. Think about that. Now this book was produced in 1915. And of course we know that not everything a person would need in this age is probably in here, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, this is actually business math. Besides all of the basic, everything I wrote on the board is in here in the first pages of this book. And there are numerous exercises. You could take this book and teach your child everything they need to know with the first part of this book, with maybe a few things added in, just to make, for emphasis, to make sure they grasp, like we're talking about. But that's all you would need. See how unintimidating it is? It's not horribly, horribly, horribly hard, okay? Just letting you know. So people ask me all the time about Ray's Arithmetics, because I have been a great proponent of Ray's Arithmetics. This is the entire set that Mott Media sells. I forgot how much, like $40, $50? I'm not sure. I forget. Okay. I will find out. I will put a link below. But here with this is a parent-teacher guide, and this is written by who else but Ruth Beechick. And so she goes into a lot of how you might use this book. It's mostly favoring a classroom setting, however, so it wasn't that useful to me. A little bit here and there, but she's got some cute ideas in there, different things. So you could read this. This could help. But when we talk about Ray's, I like to think of the period when Ray, his last name was Ray, and McGuffey were alive. Was a period when textbooks were a new idea, okay? And they were trying to create books that a student could purchase and use, and they could last through multiple children. They would be durable, and they would be universal, and they would be very basic, and they would kind of be standalone. So that's what the idea here is, and they're also very gentle. Ray wanted to make math more logical, because at the time a lot of teachers who taught math didn't even know how to do it themselves. In doing some research, I discovered that in the beginnings of our country, most people never had a math class until they got older, and that was mostly only if they were going to go into some kind of a business career where they needed it a lot, like such as a merchant. So most people didn't have a math class. They knew how to do money, they knew how to do basic figures, but they really wouldn't have known why you would take a math class. But anyway, so come along Ray and Ray's Arithmetics, and he began to change what that looked like. So this is the primary arithmetic, and this is more like what I would use it for as a spine for early arithmetic, just to know how to do a slow progression. This does not contain any number sense, or hardly any number sense at all. So you'd have to fill in the blanks, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So, one thing that I like, and the next thing that we have here with this is the intellectual arithmetic. This is not meant to be done on paper. It's supposed to be done totally aloud. And it goes all the way through fractions. And it makes you think so very hard, so that when you do sit down and do it on paper, it's like, this is nothing. I already know it in my brain, right? This is really an amazing book for that. So if you want to just kind of take your kids and really get the basics down and get them into mental math, great book. And lots and lots and lots and lots of story problems. I mean, story problems is just not like an addition, it's like the thing. This is mostly story problems, just letting you know. And then this new practical arithmetic will take your child through to all the way to so they're ready for algebra. So I'm just letting you know, it's pretty cool stuff. You could do that. And I didn't really use the last half of the book as much because, I mean, it's mostly business math in the back of it. And I have something else for business math, so I didn't do that. Okay, another thing that I want you to see that I found is these are my printed and bound by myself. I did it myself. These are Hamilton's Arithmetics. And actually I found another one called Everyday Arithmetic. It's probably better. But you know, shh, don't tell anybody. Okay, so I will show that to you though over here on my little laptop. But this right here is very gradual, very sweet, very repeating, and it's more like, I don't know, they take concepts that they've previously introduced, this is Hamilton's, and they'll reinforce those and they'll add something new, and they'll reinforce those and add something new. And they might, like, it's really interesting, they might take the number 28 and they might have the child go over and over with story problems, moving it back and forward till they know 28 inside, upside down, backwards. They know that number 28. They know how to divide it by 2. They know how to divide it by 7. They know how to divide it by 4. They know how to add until they get into 28 minus 2 is 26. They know backwards and forwards. They'll take a whole page on just one number and they'll have them dissect it until they know that number. It's really totally a different way of looking at math. So anyway, so this is Hamilton's Arithmetics, and this is Everyday Arithmetic. This book is really cool because it actually has projects that kids can do to learn things, and games all through it. The games are fun. I love the games. Oh, also Hamilton's does too. I mean, they're really fun games, like multiplication with cards up the stairs. Like you put a number on the stairs, then they have to multiply and go up the stairs. All kinds of good things like that. And circles that you can draw on the sidewalk in chalk and then do this game on the sidewalk and all kinds of stuff. So this is playing school. And there, I mean, like I said before, in these books, story problems are not the add-on. Story problems are the main thing. And it just goes very gently. And here they're using here they're using dominoes to teach. So, and kids can relate to dominoes. You can get a pack of dominoes and like show them and say, this is what this is, see? It's a lot of fun. And so this is these, and it has like a note to the teachers here on the book. So you don't have to have a teacher's guide to use these books. These books will help you right there. It's what they call open and go. Yeah, open and go book. You don't have to do any prep. You just go to the next page. And a lesson in these books takes one whole page as your lesson. Ta-da! You're done. Right? So fun. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to show you. There is also something that's really amazing that I do, and it's kind of like I've got all these old and open-ended kind of things, and yet I also use a modern spine, and I'll show you that. So this is the complete curriculum from Flash Kids, but I don't use everything in this book always. What you can buy the math for this separate. The reason I like this is because it's complete, but it's cheap. Yes, very cheap. So you can buy this for like $6. You can get the math part of it. And they have it for different grades. And what I use that for is it has a little bit of everything that the modern tests will have on them. Okay? And that way, my children are never going to say, well, I know all these old books. I really know about math. But when they look at a modern text or a modern page, they're like, freak me out. They don't know what to do, okay? So this also keeps us like abreast of modern math, what they're expecting. Also, like in the oldie days, you know, a cookie or an orange used to cost 5 cents, okay? So it's kind of hard to like, okay, so Jill has an orange and George has an orange, so how much do they cost together? 10 cents. Well, that's not really realistic. If I go over to Walmart, yeah, we're going to cost, about 50 cents to $1 for an orange. So how do we, so anyway, this kind of has the more modernish kind of bent to it. It also teaches, because on modern tests, the story problems are not the same as they were in the old books. So there's going to be a little bit of an adaptation that's going to have to happen. So what I do is we take and we go one page a day through that. And if they ever get stuck, we go back, or I might take a season. If there's a subject in there and they are not grasping it, and I will tell you that the modern way to teach greatest common factor and least common multiple, it sucks, okay? My kids never get it in modern textbooks. However, if I go back to the old textbooks and I teach them their methods, and then we'll go over and over and over. I will teach how the old books teach them. And then I will do some modern worksheets, and then we'll move on. Then we'll go in here, then we'll go to the next subject. But I don't move on until we have mastered it. I'm over with trying to push people before they're ready. It always backfires. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, so what types of things do I use for that? So what I want to turn you on to is this website. It's called Free Math Worksheets. Now, what this website does for me is any subject that my children are struggling in, whether it be number sense, hundreds boards, like, all different types and arrangements, anything practically you need, it's on here, and you can print it for free. And they have multiple versions of each worksheet. So you might, let's say that we're multiplying whole numbers by mixed numbers and fractions, and your child is not getting it. So they have A through J forms of each thing. So I'll pick a worksheet that will concentrate on that, and they don't get it the first time. So that's worksheet A in that series. They don't get it the first time. So then I will offer them worksheet B, which is the same thing, only different numbers. So then you can go all the way through J if it's taking a long time. Okay, and it happens. Don't feel bad. So if you have a child that's really struggling, okay, you have to understand that concrete math, we can see it, but abstract math is something you can't see. You have to visualize, and you have to be able to understand abstract ideas with your mind. And lots of kids are not ready for that until they're a little bit more mature. And so oftentimes we like, oh no, I'm making, I understand the angst. I totally get it. Okay, but if we are willing to maybe just be a little more patient and not push and not our angst comes off on our kids. They can sense it, and they start feeling despondent. Do you understand? Because they feel there's something wrong with me. Other kids my age can get this. I can't get this. There's something wrong with me, and that can stick with them. You got to be careful. Okay. Now, if they're just being lazy and just got attitude, okay, then you deal with that. Don't let that go, because that's not good. But I'm talking about kids who really are trying, but they, maybe they have, maybe they actually have, maybe they're giving you attitude because they feel despondent. That's my notifications. They feel despondent because they feel like there's something wrong with them, so then they have attitude. Okay, so you have to deal with that. Maybe you've already messed up. Don't worry, God will help you. Okay, so then after we've done all this, all right, so I've got all this stuff going on, and we're moving forward. Then we come to the past 8th grade, and we're saying, what do we do next, right? So I have daughters that went through all this stuff, and I actually have a daughter that went completely through Ray's Arithmetic, and then she went right into Saxon Algebra seamlessly, had not a problem, and did just fine. Okay, but not every child's like that. And I mean, I could just say, do your problems in Ray's Arithmetic, and she would just do them. I mean, I have all her notebooks. I didn't even have to sit down with her. I didn't have to explain things. She just did it. Sometimes it happens. But then I have another child who has struggled. You know what? I have just stuck with her. And long division was really hard. Oh, let me tell you about that. This is really cool. On this site, okay, when we're talking long multiplication, long division, what do we have a lot of problems with? The problem we have is that it's hard for kids to keep track of those long rows of numbers, and they make dumb mistakes because they don't put the numbers right in the right places under each other. This site, oh, you won't believe it, has worksheets that have the graph on it. So all the numbers, it has the graph lines. So when you're doing your long multiplication, your long division, it helps them keep track of all the numbers. Answer to prayer, baby, I'm telling you. So anyway, so where were we? Okay, so I stuck with her, and I stuck with her, and I stuck with her, and we went over the basics over and over again, and she would sit and sigh, and she would feel so bad, and I said, don't worry about it. We are at the level we're at, and you're going to get this. She said, I just probably can never get math. Mom, why am I so dumb at math? And stuff like that. And we go, no, you're not dumb, and we're going to get this. So we would go over and over and over and over. And you know what? We took a break from that. We took a break, and we took like 5 or 6 months, and we used all those old texts, and we went over and over how to do this. And I would put things on the board, and I would print out these things, and we would go over these lessons, and we'd go over and over, and I would have, actually I'd put it on the board. I give everybody, I would have them work out the problems on the whiteboard, and we would practice the basic principles over and over on the whiteboard. And that whiteboard, I'm telling you what, if you want to know something that will help your kids and transform their math, get your kids a whiteboard. Get them a whiteboard and give them whiteboard markers and have them do their problems on a whiteboard. You know what? When you make a problem, when you do a mistake on a whiteboard, you just wipe it off. There's nothing committed about that. You aren't committed to anything. Your mistake is poof, gone, right? So there's something unintimidating, and it also clears your mind. If you only have one problem on a huge board, it takes away all the confusion, and you can do it. Just try it. Just try it. A whiteboard is amazing. Get one of those little individual ones that you can get at the Dollar Tree or whatever. It's so cheap, but it will save your life, okay? But anyway, I would put them on the whiteboard, and I would watch them work, and we would say, okay, what do we do first, second, and third? And then she would do the principles of fractions over and over and over again. And now, when I hand her a sheet of fractions, she goes, oh, okay, and she knows the numbers. And here's the deal. If you don't know the basic facts, when you get into this higher math, it screws you up. It slows you down. So we really go over the basic math facts over and over and over again. Sometimes with some kids, you don't have to do that. They just memorize them. I don't know. But other kids, it's just, I mean, this child that I'm talking about that has trouble with math reads and writes in Korean. And she taught it to herself. Okay, she didn't have any class or anything, but she writes me notes in Korean. When we watch a Korean show, she says, oh, they translated that wrong. What it really means is this, and she taught that to herself, okay? But yet she has trouble with math. Do you understand? She's not a dullard, she's not stupid, and she's not lazy. She just has a little problem comprehending in certain areas, so we just work until we got it right. Listen, this is our school, done our way. This is what we're going to do. So then after, all these different areas I've talked about over there are pretty much mastered, then there are 2 directions I go. And some people would say that I'm actually tormenting my children with Saxon algebra. But this is what I do. I have I have the older one, but I have all the stuff to go with this. So I have 2 actual textbooks, and lots of times, like I'll teach 2 at a time in the same book. They go their own pace or whatever. And I get a graph composition book, and we just work through Saxon algebra. Then they've got their geometry and their algebra, and if they don't go past algebra, past that, I don't give squat diddle. I mean, even if they don't want to do algebra, I don't make them. But if they feel like they want to, if they want to do the next step, they want to be prepared, and this will help them to be able to teach their own kids. We do it. I love algebra. I'm good with it. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's like doing a lot of puzzles. That's me. Okay, but not everybody's like that, and that's okay. A lot of people, when they get up there, they like to use this. Teaching textbooks, that's fine. Whatever you do that way. Because not everybody likes algebra, like I said, and that's one way people go. One thing I really recommend, and I know this is going to be really cheap, but it really does work, is this Barron's Easy Business Math. I've done this with my kids, and we've used this with a couple kids, and it's really pretty good, and it's straightforward, and it really is challenging. This is not a dummy book, by the way. This is actually a business math book. Just because it says it's easy, it's not really easy. But, it teaches the basic ideas of math. Another thing that I know everybody probably already knows about, but we also do Khan Academy. My daughter, who's really pretty good at pretty much everything I give her, she did all these things, and she went through, like, the first half of Saxon algebra she didn't want to do anymore. Put her in business math, and then now she's doing personal finance with Khan Academy, and then she's doing other things, and she's going on from there. So those are some different ideas. See, for me, unless they are want to go to college to do something rigorous, such as law or medicine or engineering or something like that. For the rest of us, we really don't need a whole bunch of that stuff. And so I want them to be really smart about their lives, and not necessarily impressively smart to everybody out there. It's not me trying to prove that my homeschooling is valid, because I already know it is. But I do want them to have a good life, so I will do whatever I need to prepare them in that way. I hope that makes sense. So I think I've pretty much covered everything. I know I probably forgot some stuff. If you have any questions, make sure and ask me below. I'll try to link a lot of these sources if I can remember. But if I miss one, make sure and ask me, and I'll try to make sure I add that link as well, okay? Before I leave you, I want to give you this understanding that the God that we serve is a God of order, and He's a God of all the arithmetic that anyone could ever discover. Now, we didn't create arithmetic, we discovered it. Sir Isaac Newton is the one that came up with calculus, I believe, and he wrote books about the master creator. So isn't that good? So, and if you look at everything you see, if you look at the leaves that come out on a twig, and you calculate that, there are Fibonacci numbers in that. The golden ratio is in everything in the whole universe, okay? And what we call fractals, if you want to look that up, a fractal, if you take certain fractal equations and you take them out and you take them out and you take them out and let it create, you come up with things like clouds and leaves on the tree. It's just really amazing. Look it up on the internet. It'll really bless you, and you'll realize that when we study math, it's just another part of discovering who God is as a God of order. In fact, mathematicians believe that there is actually an equation on which the entire universe rests. And if you could find that equation, you would find God. Of course, we know that God is not limited to that. He's the one that started the whole thing in process, okay? So I just thought I'd throw that at you, and I hope this blesses you. I hope this helps demystify the whole project, and don't be afraid. If your kids don't get everything right away, just keep working with them. They eventually will, okay? And be blessed. Bye-bye.